Hello. Can everyone hear me? Yes. Okay. So I grew up in a pretty laid-back family. There weren't that many restrictions for growing up there as a girl. I grew up at the time when Dhaka still had very much a para culture. So I was out in the fields in our para mat with all the boys every afternoon, running around and playing. And it started with the usual childhood games, kanamachi, chua-chui. But as we grew older, of course, our games evolved and became more adult. So we moved into basketball, cricket, and football. Iqbal bhai, I have to say, I'm not a cricket fan. I used to find it really boring, a lot of standing around and waiting, and then you get to run a little and then stand more. I hope this does not, write me off as a legitimate Bangladeshi. I didn't grow up really thinking about differences between being a boy and a girl. But even then, I definitely realized that how I was, who I was definitely, in fact, a girl. And if you ask me when it was the first time that I realized that being a girl was different from being a boy, it'd be difficult for me to pinpoint. But I do remember this one time. Maybe I was 7 or 8 years old, and me and my brother, who's a few years younger to me, we went and we were staying over at my great-grandmother's house. And the house help there, during the meal, insisted that my brother could not have the chicken feet, which was in the curry. Chicken feet, not chicken leg, by the way. She insisted that he cannot have it, but if I wanted to, I could. Which was odd, but fine, I took it on my plate and eventually sneaked it over to my brother when she wasn't noticing. Next day, I actually went and told my mother about this story. And I asked her what this was about. And even for her, it took her a little while to think about this and remember that there is some kind of a myth where boys are not allowed to eat chicken feet and chicken heart because one is considered a waste part and the other will apparently make young boys grow up to be cowardly men. Funny, right? Of course, my mother laughed at this and laughed it off. And me, when I was hearing this story from her, I laughed along with her. And I didn't think much about it, at least not then. But I guess in many ways, this struck with me. And I realized that even if my parents didn't really make differences between us being a boy and a girl, other people around us definitely saw us differently. And not only did they see us differently, they believed that we deserved different things. So, I guess this was my introduction to Gender 101. Just to ensure that we are all on the same page, I would like to ask, with a show of hands, how many of you know the difference between sex and gender? Okay, about 50%. How many of you think that sex and gender is the same thing? All right. So they're not. Just for the basics, sex is the biological difference between males and females. So pretty simply, if you're born with a penis, man. You're born with a vagina, female. Sorry, male and female. There's also the term intersex, which is typically people who are not necessarily born with any one of these specifically defined body parts. Gender, on the other hand, is a social cultural attribute that is placed upon males and females. So it's what we expect males and females to look like or behave. For example, let's say boys will have short hair and girls will have long hair. It's not necessarily part of our sex because, face it, we can both grow our hairs and we can both cut our hairs, right? But we also say things like boys or men would be interested in cars, and women, on the other hand, will be interested in baking. This is a social expectation of what we're supposed to be interested in, or we're supposed to move towards, or roles that we're expected to play. So I was in Khulna once for one of my work projects. I get to travel a lot around Bangladesh for the work I do and go to really rural parts of the country. Very green, very beautiful. It's one of the perks I have. And we were at lunch at this public official's house, and he happened to also be involved in fish farming. So our team, 2 women and 2 men, we're standing around this table, which is laid out with a whole different bunch of fish and prawn curries. And our gracious host exclaims, "Apara, please, please, go ahead, serve yourselves. You know how to do it. The men might have some trouble with it." Times like this, I actually wonder sometimes what I should be more offended by. Whether it's the fact that he thinks serving food is only for women to do, or that men are apparently so inept they don't know how to reach out, pick up a spoon, and put food on their plate. But this is what gender has taught this man. He has learned that cooking and serving food is women's work, and men don't do it. So there we are, us multi-talented women. We start serving our food, and a house help walks in to start serving the men. Point to be noted, the house help was actually a young man. So this is what gendering has also taught our gracious host. Cooking and serving food is a woman's job. Men don't do it unless it's a man who is providing a service, and preferably of a socioeconomic position which is inferior to him. And that's what we've learned as well. We've learned that different attributes of males and females are valued in different ways. We have been taught that as a woman, we've been taught that certain things, certain attributes that are considered to be masculine, like, say, being independent, being opinionated, or analytical. These are attributes we all want. These are all attributes of leadership. And both men and women, we want to have them. On the other hand, we are also thinking that certain attributes which are considered to be feminine, being emotional, being soft, these are looked at as weaknesses, and we've picked this up in life. For the longest time, when I was a kid, I wished I was a boy. And nobody had told me this. I wished it because I liked to do things which weren't thought of as things girls did. I liked running around and playing sports. And I watched on TV cricket games and football games where the only people on the field were men. So it's supposed to be things boys do. I learned it by seeing other girls in my school who had been told not to go outdoors. So in games classes, they stayed in the class, which is not something I wanted to do. So it took me a long time, I wasn't as cool as Nancy over there. So it took me a long time to embrace my own femininity. And I don't mean wearing earrings or putting on lipstick. I mean more the attributes that I talked about earlier, what are considered feminine and what are considered masculine. And I learned to embrace both those sides of myself. But as I did that, I also kept on questioning what are these beliefs that I bring myself, not just the boxes that society expects us to fit into, but what are the beliefs, what are the constrictions that I put on myself. The more I thought about this, the more I read about this, I kept on realizing that I judged myself so many times because I felt I was showing too much anger for a woman. I've judged other women by the way they behaved or chose to dress because I felt they didn't fit into what I thought was womanly enough. I've just judged men around me because I felt they weren't being as much go-getters as I expected them to be. So what I'm saying is, a lot of the issues around gender is not just society putting it on us. Most of it is all the things that we've learned in our lives and how we reproduce them in our everyday lives onto ourselves and others around us. And it doesn't make my life easier. I get to be in situations and positions, and I have to keep on questioning myself. If what I'm expecting out of that situation, if what I want to say is based on what I think is supposed to be, or it's my own unadulterated choice. And the more I question myself about this, I realize there's nothing called unadulterated choice. Everything that I've learned in life and picked up by seeing things around me, hearing things around me, reading things around me, the normal way is for me to just reproduce them. And I fail at it continuously. But you know what they say? If you don't fail, you don't learn. And if you don't learn, you can't change. So hopefully, as we fail every day, we would start to unlearn everything that we've learned before. And maybe one day, we can stand around and see each other for just our human elements, not the length of our hairs, or the clothes we wear, or even the roles we play. Thank you.